Welcome to the MVP podcast. Today is Tuesday, September 9th, 2020. Let's jump right into MVP talk. Growing up in Southern Ohio, it was hard not to become a fan of LeBron James when he came into the league in 2003. He wowed us with his performance offensively and defensively, whether he was dunking on people or pinning blocks to the backboard. Flash forward 16 years later, and it's a lot of the same. LeBron James and the Lakers are on their way to the finals, and LeBron has reached his 9th finals in 10 years and his 10th finals total. The last time the Lakers were in the finals was in 2009 and in 2010, where they won back-to-back titles with Kobe Bryant. If the Lakers and LeBron James are to win the finals this year, LeBron would become the third player to win a title with 3 different teams and become the only player to be the primary piece on a championship team with 3 different teams. LeBron's 10th finals appearance also puts him ahead of every single franchise in the NBA for finals appearances outside of the Lakers, who have 32 appearances, the Celtics, who have 21 appearances, and the Warriors, who have 11 appearances, to LeBron's 10 appearances. LeBron's 3-6 record in the finals may look poor, but the teams he has faced have been some of the toughest competition the league has ever seen. Outside of maybe the Mavericks series, these were some of the greatest teams of all time. The Mavs, no knock on them. They had a great team. They were really hot that year and got the best of LeBron and them. But LeBron is still finding ways to be just as good now as he was back then. He's finding new ways to score, new ways to defend, new ways to make his team better and reach them to new heights. This playoffs, he's averaging 26 points, 10 boards, and 9 assists in year 16. He's still at the top of his game, and I expect him to continue to be at the top of his game in the finals. The Lakers look like it's their finals to lose. The Heat will be a tough test, but LeBron James is looking for his 4th finals win, and I think he's going to get it. We've got a great show today. We're going to break down the remaining games of the conference finals. We're going to preview the NBA finals. Then we're going to review every game of the NFL slate and cap it off with a little TV time where we're going to talk about the upcoming Marvel movies and TV shows. Let's hop right into the NBA. Okay, Lakers-Nuggets, games 4 and 5. I'm kind of going to move quickly through this Lakers-Nuggets game 4 and 5 because I'm going to bring on my buddy Reed to talk about Heat-Celtics. So let's get into it. Game 4 of Lakers-Nuggets, the Lakers pretty much controlled this game from start to finish. LeBron and Davis led the way with 26 and 34 points each. They got the win 114-108. Murray had a great game. He had 32. They made a run late to try to come back and push this to 2-2, but it just wasn't enough. LeBron and Davis were going off. Those two guys are unstoppable when they've got it working, and the Lakers ended up pushing this series to 3-1. So then in game 5, it was an awesome game. This was a classic LeBron closeout game. This game was pretty tight through the first quarter, but then the Lakers made a run in the second to push their lead out. Nuggets made a nice comeback near the end of the third and into the fourth quarter to try to extend this series to 6 games. But Murray was a little hobbled. Anthony Davis even rolled his ankle a little, and he was kind of standing in the corner a lot. So this was just where LeBron absolutely took over this game. This was the classic LeBron closeout game we've all been hoping for, where he takes it to the basket, scores, he makes runners through the lane, he's making threes, just doing it all, and it was so much fun to watch. It was so exciting to see his teammates rally around him and for him to just get that energy and get that closeout. That's exactly the type of killer closeout that we wanted to see from LeBron, and he definitely showed it in Game 5. All props to the Nuggets. I thought they fought a lot harder than I was expecting. They made every game relatively close, even though it was a 3-1 series victory for the Lakers. The Nuggets played a really great series. I think the Nuggets are a couple pieces away, or maybe even just one piece away, or maybe even just some added development from the guys they have from really getting somewhere. We'll see what they do and see where they go from here. But they had a really great playoffs, especially with 2-3-1 comebacks in the first two rounds before running into the Lakers. Respect to the Nuggets, but the Lakers are going to make this finals a lot more fun. Getting to see Davis in his first NBA finals and LeBron back again will give that special feeling to the finals, even though it's a weird season. So, classic LeBron game 5, closeout, really nice. Lakers win this series 4-1. Okay, we're going to move it over to the Eastern Conference. I got my buddy Reed on the line, live from Florida.
What's up, everybody?
Okay, before we get talking to Reed, I'm going to briefly run through games 5 and 6 for you guys. So in game 5, Celtics started off a little bit slow. Heat looked like they were ready to make their run and go to the finals and close the Celtics out in 5. But the Celtics made a final push to finish off the first half and then went on to own the third quarter. They went on a 20-3 run to get the first lead of the game and stretched it to double digits. They finished off the game strong and forced a game 6 against the Heat. In game 6, it was pretty tight throughout. Bam led the way for the Heat with 32 points, followed by Jimmy with 22 and Hero with 19. The Heat went on a 19-6 run to finish the game and advance to the finals. They will move on to face the Lakers. So now we got Reed, who's my buddy and Heat fan since forever. He's from Florida. So I just wanted to get his thoughts on how he feels about the Heat being back in the finals and what his outlook is going up against LeBron and the Lakers. So we'll start with Reed. How does it feel to have the Heat back in the finals? It's been a while.
I know, it really has been. It's almost a little surreal. I wouldn't say that I'm shocked, but I'm definitely surprised. This team has definitely shown that they have heart, they have hustle. I think Jimmy coming back to the Heat was huge. I thought he brought the dog mentality. He brought the swagger back to Miami, and everyone's been on board. Yeah. I definitely think that we also benefited from this bubble because we are a 5 seed.
I mean, adding Jimmy to that team is a great addition. I agree. He's really brought that dog mentality. It's shown, I think, in the way Hero has grown into the player he is, too. I think everybody on that team is just a dog now, and Jimmy's leading the way. I always thought it was funny when he was in Minnesota and he was yelling at everybody at practice and he won the scrimmage with the third stringers. That always made me laugh. That's what got me liking Jimmy a little bit, and it's been nice to see him winning with this Heat team. So let's move on. So you've talked about how you feel to be back in the finals. I definitely agree. You guys have definitely benefited being a 5 seed, being in the bubble, and not having these fans. But how does it feel this time going up against LeBron when you had him on your squad last time? It's got to be weird, right?
It's super weird. So LeBron's my second favorite player of all time behind D-Wade, of course. And I've been rooting for the Lakers, to make the finals. I really didn't think that – I knew we had a chance, but I wasn't confident in it because we just had so many new pieces and so many young players. But, this would be a great storyline of LeBron should have never left the Heat in the first place.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wonder what this team would look like if LeBron had stayed. Like, that's just an interesting, alternate timeline I'd love to explore. Like, what if LeBron didn't go back to Cleveland? Like, what would have Kyrie brought to Cleveland? What would the Heat have done to retool around an aging LeBron and an aging D-Wade? I feel like that's one of those interesting, alternate timelines that people don't talk about a lot because it was just kind of a given that LeBron was going to go back to Cleveland.
Yeah, I think he had to bring the ship back to Cleveland and for that city and that state. But, yeah, I think he should have never left, of course. I understand why he did, but this is all business now, and I'm ready to 4 games till the 4th championship. So that's kind of the storyline for me. LeBron's 4th or the Heat's 4th.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't connect that. That's a good one. So I guess let's jump in. What's your prediction for the finals? What you can give a biased prediction, you can give an unbiased prediction. Also, you can give two. I don't care. Well, what are you thinking about for this finals, and what how many games, who wins, who steps up for the Heat? What are your thoughts?
So I'm not afraid of LeBron. I'm not afraid of Anthony Davis, but both of them together is definitely a problem. We're gonna have to stick to our zone. Bam has been just killing it in the middle. Of course, we have a couple weak defenders and Duncan Robinson and Goran and Tyler. I think he'll get better, but he's just a little too small right now. My heart says the Heat, of course. My head says the Lakers. I'm gonna go with my heart on this one. I think that we're gonna push it to 7 and we will become victorious because I think we have showed that we are the clutchest team in the NBA in the bubble so far.
Okay. I like that prediction. I hope it goes to 7 just so that we have some more basketball because it's going to be so long until we got basketball again. I mean, at least we got football now, but without basketball, life can be a little dull. So I hope we get 7. I think my prediction is I'll say Lakers in 6. I think the Heat are a better team than the Nuggets. I think that they'll put up a better fight than the Nuggets did. I think they'll at least push it to 6, but I think LeBron and AD will be a little too much. I do think that out of anybody, the Heat do match up the best with Bam matched up with Davis, and you got Jimmy that can guard LeBron. So I think that defensively the Heat do have a good matchup there, but I just don't see LeBron losing, especially now. They've come this far. He's not going to let them fall short again. I think LeBron gets his 4th. I'm sorry, bud, but
it's all good. I mean, that's what my head's telling me.
It's going to be a good series. It's going to be a fun series. It's going to be a good finals, and I'm really excited.
Absolutely. I think our advantage is definitely in depth, but that pick and roll is going to – so it's going to just be interesting to see what Spo throws at them. I'm very intrigued by this matchup for us. I remember in the regular season, it was kind of just like they're too tall for us, but I think this zone definitely changes things because it's going to – the players on the Lakers are really going to need to step up other than LeBron and AD to win this for LA.
I agree. I think the zone is a different element that they just haven't seen before, and it could make a big difference because the Lakers might not be ready for it.
For sure.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, bud. Thanks for giving your insight on the Heat. We're hoping to have a great finals. Good luck to you and your Heat.
Thanks, bud. It's a pleasure. I appreciate it. And keep doing your thing. Check out my boy, MVP Podcast.
Thanks, bud. See ya. Week 3 NFL review. Just wanted to give you guys an update on my picks from last week. My picks from last week, straight up, went 10-5-1. And against the spread was 9-7. This week, we're going to break down the games. We're going to count them down from the worst games to the best games of the weekend, and then cap it off with talking about the Monday Night Football game. Hope you guys enjoy. We're going to kick off week 3 countdown with 49ers versus Giants. 49ers got the win in this one, 36-9, to improve to 2-1, while the Giants dropped to 0-3. Going back on my picks from last week, my pick was the Niners in this one, so we got the win there. Against the spread, I had picked the Giants +4, and clearly that one lost. In this one, the Niners really just steamrolled the Giants. Giants struggled to run the ball without Saquon. Their offense just really couldn't get it moving and never really didn't get in the end zone. With all the players missing for the Niners defense, they really held up well and really slowed down the Giants offense and really forced Daniel Jones to struggle throughout the day, as well as just pretty much stopping the run altogether. Nick Mullins was really impressive for the Niners, replacing Garoppolo this week. They scored on every drive except one where they missed a field goal. so that's not even really his fault. So Nick Mullins was pretty impressive this week. I was impressed with the way that the Niners were able to put up points. I thought it was going to be a low-scoring game, like I said last week. But putting up 36 with all those guys missing, including your quarterback, is really impressive. Some of the top fantasy performers this week, we'll start with the Niners. The top performer for them was Jeff Wilson. He's a running back who replaced Mostert. He had 2 touchdowns this week, 1 passing and 1 rushing. Next up, the next performer was Brandon Ayuk. He's their rookie receiver. He had 5 catches for 70 yards, as well as 3 carries for 31 yards and a touchdown. And then the last one I've got for the Niners was Nick Mullins. He had 343 yards and a touchdown, and that was just for fantasy, but overall he was just managing the game and managed their team well. For the Giants, they really only had one guy that scored over 10 fantasy points, and that was their kicker, Graham Gano. He was 2 for 2 from 40 to 49 yards and 1 for 1 on 50-plus yard field goals. So he got over 10 points this week, so that was a relatively good day from him as a kicker. Coming in next on the countdown is Dolphins versus Jaguars. The Dolphins got the win in this one, 31-13, to improve to 1-2, while the Jaguars fall to 1-2. My pick in this one was the Jags. I'd been impressed by their first 2 weeks, and that was a loss for me this week. I had also picked Jags -3, which is also a loss for us this week. The Dolphins really just surprised me this week. They started off hot, and Fitzpatrick was just amazing. I kept waiting for them to make a mistake, especially Fitzpatrick to make a mistake, and he really didn't. He was just solid all around, and they were pretty dominant from start to finish. Minshew had a solid stat line, but really wasn't very impressive. I was always kind of waiting for him to make a big play or do something fun that would get them back in the game, but it just never really came. Some top fantasy performers from this game. For the Jaguars, we've got James Robinson. He had 11 carries for 46 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had 6 catches for 83 yards. For Miami, their top guys were, the first guy was Ryan Fitzpatrick. He had 160 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, as well as 38 yards and a rushing touchdown. Myles Gaskin was also one of their top performers. He had 22 carries for 46 yards, as well as 5 catches for 29 yards. And the last performer for the Dolphins was Devontae Parker. He had 5 catches for 69 yards. Next up, we got my first lock of the week in Colts versus Jets. Colts got the win in this one, 36-7, to improve to 2-1, as the Jets fall to 0-3. My pick last week was the Colts to win this one, so that was a winner. And against the spread, the Colts were -10.5, so that one was a winner as well. The Jets are bad. Right off the bat, Darnold threw a pick 6 to give the Colts the lead, and the Colts just really didn't look back from there. This was a blowout where the Colts defense really just showed out. The defense was really strong all day, causing the Jets offense to not be able to do a lot and really propelled them to the win, especially scoring 2 times on pick 6s. That really helps, especially when Phillip Rivers wasn't looking as great last week. But on the bright side, Phillip Rivers has become the 6th quarterback ever to get to 60,000 passing yards and 400 touchdowns for his career. So congratulations to him, and the Colts got a nice win this week and will get a nice matchup next week against the Bears, which should be fun, facing an undefeated team after coming off a big win like this, even though the Jets are not very good. Some top fantasy performers this week. I don't have anybody for the Jets. They didn't have anybody that did anything of significance fantasy-wise. They only scored 1 touchdown, so they didn't really have anybody of impact offensively. For the Colts, coming in at their third spot was Jonathan Taylor. He had 13 rushes for 59 yards and a touchdown, as well as 1 catch for 3 yards. The second highest producer was Mo Alley-Cox. He had 3 catches for 50 yards and a touchdown. And the highest performer for the Colts for fantasy this week was their defense. Their defense gave up 7 points, had 2 sacks, 3 interceptions, had 1 safety, and scored 2 touchdowns. My next lock of the week came with Bucs versus Broncos. Bucs got the win in this one, 28-10, to improve to 2-1, while the Broncos fall to 0-3. Last week, like I said, my lock, I had picked the Bucs to win, so that's a winner. And then the Bucs were -6 is what I had picked last week as well, so that's a winner as well. Bucs got up early in this one and just never really looked back, just kind of like the Colts. The Bucs defense stepped up, getting 6 sacks and a safety, and then Brady, led the way with 297 yards and 3 touchdowns. There's really not much more to say about this other than the Bucs were good and the Broncos were not. Some top performers from this game for fantasy. For the Broncos, coming in at number 3, we've got Noah Fant. He had 5 catches for 46 yards. At number 2, they had Jerry Jeudy. He had 5 catches for 55 yards. And number 1 was Tim Patrick. He had 4 catches for 43 yards and a touchdown. For the Bucs, coming in at number 3, Chris Godwin had 5 catches for 64 yards and a touchdown. Number 2 was their defense. They gave up 10 points, had a blocked punt, had a safety, 6 sacks, and 2 interceptions. And their top performer this week was Tom Brady, who had 297 yards and 3 touchdowns. Next up, we got Pats versus Raiders. The Pats got the win in this one, 36-20 over the Raiders, improving to 2-1, while the Raiders fall to 2-1. I had picked the Pats in this one, and the Raiders plus 6.5 for the spread. So the Pats are a winner there, but the Raiders with the spread is a loser. This one was a slow start for both teams a little bit. It took the Pats a quarter and a half or a quarter to really get it going. Once they did, it really never felt like the Raiders could win this game. The Raiders scored late to kind of cut down the deficit, but at that point, the Pats had already pretty much put this game out of reach and had locked up the win. It's a good performance for the Pats in this one. Some of the top performers for fantasy, we've got coming in at number 3 for the Pats, their defense. They only allowed 20 points. They had 2 sacks, 3 fumble recoveries, and 1 touchdown. Coming in at number 2 is Sony Michel. He had 9 carries, 117 yards, as well as 2 catches for 23 yards. And the top performer for the Pats this week was Rex Burkhead. He had 6 carries for 49 yards and 2 touchdowns, as well as 7 catches for 49 yards and a touchdown. On the Raiders side of the ball, they had 2 guys that were pretty impactful when it came to fantasy this week. Those will be Derek Carr. He had 261 yards, 2 touchdowns, as well as 2 carries for 10 yards. He also did fumble twice. And Hunter Renfrow, who had 6 catches for 85 yards and a touchdown. Browns and the Washington football team. The Browns took this one 34-20 to improve to 2-1, while Washington falls to 1-2. My pick in this one was the Browns, as well as Browns -7. So those are both winners from my picks last week. Washington struck first in this game, and it looked like it was going to be back and forth, but then the Browns fired back and took the lead until late into the third. In the third, the Redskins made a nice little comeback, but then the Browns put together back-to-back TD drives, capped it off with a field goal, and won 34-20. One thing that really was hurting Washington in this game was the fact they lost Chase Young early. He had a leg injury or something and left the game in the first quarter, I think. So that's something that we should watch out for. Hopefully he's not out too long because he's been pretty fun to watch as a rookie through the first 3 weeks. Some of the top performers for this week for fantasy for Washington, we've got Terry McLaurin, who had 4 catches for 83 yards. Antonio Gibson, who had 9 carries for 49 yards, a touchdown, as well as 3 catches for 11 yards. And their top performer was Dontrell Inman, who had 3 catches for 38 yards and 2 touchdowns. For the Browns, they had Baker Mayfield, who had 156 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kareem Hunt, who had 16 carries for 46 yards, as well as 2 catches for 18 yards and a touchdown. And their top performer was Nick Chubb, who had 19 carries for 108 yards and 2 touchdowns. Next up, we got Panthers versus Chargers. Panthers got the win in this one, 21-16, to improve to 1-2 as the Chargers fall to 1-2. My pick in this one had been the Chargers as well as Chargers minus 6.5, so those were both losers this week. This game was a little slow to start, but had a solid finish. The Panthers were up pretty much most of the game. When Herbert led a touchdown drive to cut it to 5, the Panthers got the ball back and the Chargers forced them to punt. So then the Chargers offense got the ball back, down by 5. Herbert ready to lead his first game-winning drive of his career, but then they fumbled, and then the Panthers were able to run out the clock. I was pretty impressed with Herbert. I don't think he was amazing, but he made a lot of great plays today and was pretty impressive to me for only being in his second week of playing, and he looked a lot more comfortable and looked a lot better with having the full week of prep as the starter. So I'm excited to see Herbert in the future. I think he can be a solid quarterback in this league. Panthers got a nice win, especially without Christian McCaffrey. They need everything they can get while he's still out, so this is going to be a nice pickup for them. Some of the top performers this week, we'll start with the Chargers. Coming in at number 3 for them was Justin Herbert, who had 330 yards, a touchdown, an interception, a fumble, and 15 yards rushing. At number 2, they had Keenan Allen, who had 13 catches for 132 yards and a touchdown. And their top performer was Austin Eckler, who had 12 carries for 59 yards, a touchdown, as well as 11 catches for 84 yards. For the Panthers, coming in at number 3 was Teddy Bridgewater, who had 235 yards, a touchdown, as well as 2 carries for 12 yards. Number 2 was their kicker, Joe Sly, who was 5 for 5 from under 39 yards and 0 for 1 on extra points. And their top performer was Mike Davis, who's replacing McCaffrey this week. He had 13 carries for 46 yards, as well as 8 catches for 45 yards and a touchdown. Next up is Steelers-Texans. Steelers got the win in this one, 28-21, to improve to 3-0, while the Texans fall to 0-3. My picks last week were Steelers straight up and Steelers minus 4, so those are both winners. This game started to look like a shootout near the end of the first half. Both teams started going back and forth, trading touchdowns. But in the end, defense ruled the second half. The Steelers only scored 10 points, getting a touchdown and a field goal to get the win over the Texans in this one. Texans just haven't really been impressive to me for the first 2 weeks. I mean, every time I kind of look, it looks like Watson's in trouble. I kind of just feel bad for him. This team is not looking very impressive through the first 3 weeks, and he's so good and fun to watch that it really stinks that he's on such a bad team at the moment. I don't hope that they turn it around. Obviously, being in the Colts division, I hope that they stay down, but I do feel bad for Watson, and I do enjoy watching him play, so it would be nice for him to have a good team around him for once. It was also cool to see all 3 Watt brothers on the field. We had JJ, TJ, and Derek all playing together in the same game. Derek and TJ both being on the Steelers, so that was cool. Obviously, JJ got the short end of this one. Some of the top performers from this week, we'll start with the Texans. Coming in at number 3 for the Texans was Will Fuller. He had 4 catches for 54 yards and a touchdown. At number 2 was Deshaun Watson, who had 264 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. And their top performer was Randall Cobb, who had 4 catches for 95 yards and a touchdown. For the Steelers, it was their big 3. Coming in at number 3 was Juju, who had 4 catches for 43 yards and a touchdown. At number 2 was Big Ben Roethlisberger, who had 237 yards and 2 touchdowns. And their top performer this week was James Conner, who had 18 carries for 109 yards, a touchdown, as well as 4 catches for 40 yards. Next, we've got Lions versus Cardinals. Lions got the win in this one, 26-23, to improve to 1-2, while the Cardinals get their first loss of the season to fall to 2-1. My picks in this one had been the Cardinals and the Cardinals minus 5.5, so those were both losers this week. As much fun as it is to watch Kyler Murray, he really struggled in this one. He had 3 interceptions. I just love watching him run around, though. I just feel like he's got the quickest feet, and when he's outside the pocket and moving around and making plays, he can be fun to watch, but he really did struggle in this one. In the end, Stafford showed that he's still a solid quarterback in this league. He led the game-winning drive to get them the field goal to win. So Stafford is still one of the better guys in this league. I mean, he's very underappreciated for what he's done, and the Lions have just been so bad that he just hasn't gotten the praise that he really deserves. So Matthew Stafford, it's nice to see him pulling out a win in this one. Some top fantasy performers. We'll start with the Cardinals. Coming in at number 3 is Andy Isabella, who had 4 catches for 47 yards and 2 touchdowns. At number 2 is Kyler Murray, who had 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, as well as 5 carries for 29 yards and a touchdown. Their top performer was DeAndre Hopkins, who had 10 catches for 137 yards. For the Lions, coming in at number 3 was Matt Prater, who was 4 for 4 from inside 39 yards and 2 for 2 on extra points. At number 2 was Kenny Golladay, who had 6 catches for 57 yards and a touchdown. And their top performer was Matthew Stafford, who had 270 yards and 2 touchdowns. Coming in at number 5 on our Sunday countdown of games, we've got Titans versus Vikings. Titans got the win in this one, 31-30, to improve to 3-0, and the Vikings fall to 0-3. My pick in this one was Titans, and then Titans minus 2.5. So my pick straight up is a winner this week, but against the spread is a loser. The Vikings looked a lot better this week than they did last week against the Colts. They jumped out to an early lead against the Titans and held on to it until the third quarter, middle of the third quarter. And that's when things changed and the Titans really got it going. Derrick Henry became a big piece of their offense. He rushed for a couple touchdowns. They came back to take the lead and then held off the Vikings with their defense to get the win. So it was a really nice comeback from the Titans to get to 3-0. Vikings look better, much improved, even though they're at 3-0. I still don't think they're a great team. They just look to struggle on both sides of the ball, but who knows? They've got some solid pieces on both sides, so they could figure it out and turn their season around. Some of the top performers in this game, we'll start with the Vikings. Coming in at number 3 is Kirk Cousins, who had 251 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 picks, as well as 2 rushes for 14 yards. At number 2 was Dalvin Cook, who had 22 carries for 181 yards, a touchdown, as well as 2 catches for 18 yards. And their top performer was the rookie, Justin Jefferson, who had 7 catches for 175 yards and a touchdown. For the Titans, coming in at number 3 was Khalif Raymond, who is a wide receiver for them. He had 3 catches for 118 yards. At number 2 was Steven Gostkowski, who was 3 for 3 from inside 39 and 3 for 3 from 50 plus, as well as 1 for 1 on extra points. And their top performer was the beast, Derrick Henry, who had 26 carries for 119 yards, 2 touchdowns, as well as 2 catches for 11 yards. At number 4, we've got Rams versus Bills. Bills got the win in this one, 35-32, to improve to 3-0, while the Rams dropped to 2-1. My picks in this one were Bills straight up and Bills minus 2, so those were both winners this week. This week showed us again that Josh Allen could be a dark horse MVP candidate. He threw for over 300 yards again. He's just been unreal. The Bills' offense has been scoring at a high clip, and he's been the leader and the engine that drives that offense. Bills went up 28-3 quickly in this game behind Josh Allen, but the Rams made one of the biggest comebacks in NFL history, coming back from 28-3 to then take the lead. But Josh Allen was too much. He led them on a game-winning drive after they lost the lead and got them the win. It was a fun game to watch. It came down to the last few drives and the last few plays for Josh Allen to try to get them in the end zone to win this game. And it was great watching both quarterbacks. Goff was great as well. Both of these guys are looking like they're going to be the future of the quarterback position in the NFL, along with Lamar and Patrick Mahomes and maybe Sam Darnold, we'll see. Maybe if he gets out of New York, I don't know. But there's a good group of quarterbacks that I think are coming up as these guys like Brady and Breeze and Rodgers are on their way out. So it's good to see that some of these young guys are going to be putting up points and do it against each other. It's fun. Some of the top performers for fantasy in this game for the Rams, coming in at number 3, we've got Robert Woods, who in his return to Buffalo had 5 catches for 74 yards and a touchdown, as well as 3 carries for 30 yards. At number 2 was Cooper Kupp, who had 9 catches for 107 yards and a touchdown. Their top performer was Jared Goff, who had 321 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception, as well as 2 carries for 4 yards and a touchdown. For the Bills, coming in at number 3, they had Devin Singletary, who had 13 carries for 71 yards, as well as 4 catches for 50 yards. At number 2 was Tyler Kroft, who had 4 catches for 24 yards and 2 touchdowns. And their top performer was, once again, Josh Allen, who had 311 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, 1 fumble, as well as 4 carries for 8 yards and a touchdown. At number 3, we've got Bears versus Falcons. Bears got the win in this one, 30-26, to improve to 3-0, while the Falcons fall to 0-3. My pick in this one was the Falcons with the Bears +3 for the spread. So the Bears +3 for the spread is a winner, while the Falcons is a loser. This was probably one of the weirdest games of the weekend. The Bears had a slow start offensively, and it led them to replacing Trubisky with Foles. The Bears offense then still continued to struggle until the fourth quarter, where they then scored 3 straight touchdowns to take the lead, and then they intercepted Matt Ryan late to seal the game. The Falcons just choked it away again. I mean, this is the second straight week where they had the game in their hands. All they had to do was just keep possession, run the clock, and not mess up, and they did. They did it back-to-back weeks. I think the Bears defense was pretty good this week, but I mean, Falcons just couldn't take advantage of anything. I mean, they even had a quarterback change, and they still couldn't take advantage. So the Falcons are going to have to figure out what they're going to do, or else their season's going to be over pretty quickly. They've got some solid guys on both sides of the ball, so they can figure it out, but they're going to have to do it fast, or else they're going to fall out of this division race. I mean, their division is so tough with the Saints and the Bucs now that it's going to be hard for them to make the playoffs. So they're going to have to flip the switch really quickly and start getting some wins. Some top fantasy performers in this one. We'll start with the Falcons. They had 2. Coming in at number 2 is Todd Gurley, who had 14 carries for 80 yards and a touchdown. And their top performer was Calvin Ridley, who had 5 catches, 110 yards, as well as 1 carry for 7 yards. For the Bears, coming in at number 3, they had Nick Foles, who had 188 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Jimmy Graham, who had 6 catches for 60 yards and 2 touchdowns. And their top performer was Allen Robinson, who had 10 catches for 123 yards and a touchdown. Coming in at number 2 on the countdown is Seahawks versus Cowboys. Seahawks got the win in this one, 38-31, to improve to 3-0, while the Cowboys dropped to 1-2. My pick in this one was the Seahawks and the Cowboys +4.5 for the spread. So the Seahawks is a winner there, and the Cowboys with the spread is a loser. Russ was cooking once again in this one. He's clearly the MVP frontrunner through the first 3 weeks. He threw another 5-touchdown game, and one of them was the eventual game winner. The Seahawks defense came up with a big safety earlier on in the game and had a big interception in the end zone to seal it over Dak and the Cowboys. So it was a great game from the Seahawks. Russ looked great again. He's got the most beautiful balls, man. He was throwing some deep ones to DK, although they should have had another touchdown. DK had that one that got punched out of his hand and into the back of the end zone for a touchback. That was kind of funny. But then he made up for it by having a nice bomb later that he caught and brought in for one to, I think that was the game-sealing touchdown, was the one at DK. So it was a great day for the Seahawks. Had a nice comeback there at the end after the Cowboys took the lead. And for Dallas, Dak has just been keeping them in this game. He threw for 472 yards and 3 touchdowns. Yeah, he had 2 picks, but, I mean, when are they going to pay this guy? I mean, they paid everybody else, It's not like they'd be in these games without Dak. I just don't understand it. I mean, even sitting at 1-2, they played a bunch of good teams, playing the Rams and the Seahawks. Those guys are good, so I don't blame them for losing. But having Andy Dalton in there isn't going to be a better option. I mean, unless you're getting Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields, Dak Prescott is going to be your best option at quarterback in Dallas, and he's clearly shown that he can win games. So I don't know why they haven't paid him yet. It baffles me. You need a quarterback in this league. If there's one position in this league that you need to have, it's quarterback. And the teams that don't have a quarterback are struggling, and the teams that don't have even a decent quarterback are struggling. So I don't know. Dak is above average in my opinion, and I think Dallas just needs to pay him already because it's ridiculous. Without him, they'd be getting crushed. Top performers in this one, we'll start with the Cowboys. Coming in at number 3 is Michael Gallup, who had 6 catches for 138 yards and a touchdown. At number 2 was Dak, who had 472 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, a fumble, as well as 6 rushes for 26 yards. The Cowboys' top performer this week was Cedric Wilson, who had 5 catches for 107 yards and 2 touchdowns. For the Seahawks, coming in at number 3 is DK Metcalf, who had 4 catches for 110 yards and a touchdown. Should have had 2. At number 2 is Russell Wilson, who had 315 yards, 5 touchdowns, as well as 6 carries for 22 yards. And their top performer was Tyler Lockett, who had 9 catches for 100 yards and 3 touchdowns. Coming in as the top game on the Sunday slate is Packers versus Saints. Packers got the win in this one, 37-30 over the Saints to improve to 3-0, while the Saints fall to 1-2. My pick in this one was the Packers, as well as the Packers plus 3.5. So those are both winners there. What a great way to cap off Sunday, though. 2 of the great quarterbacks going head to head. It was just a shootout. The quarterbacks were playing great football, and the running backs were unbelievable. Kamara had that great catch and run where he broke off a bunch of tackles and took it to the end zone. And Aaron Jones was pretty amazing as well. It's hard for him to outshine Kamara, who was incredible. He had 139 yards receiving. So it's hard to top a running back when he does something like that. But it was just fun to see Breeze and Rodgers going head-to-head again. And the only real difference in this game came from the defense. I mean, the offenses were going back and forth, matching each other, keeping it tight. And then Zadarius Smith got the fumble late in the fourth quarter when Taysom Hill coughed it up. Packers came down, scored that touchdown, and that was the big difference in the game. Even sitting at 1-2, though, I think the Saints are still a contender. They're going to be a tough out in the playoffs when they get there, and they're going to be in that division mix with the Bucs and maybe the Falcons if they can turn it around. But right now it's just looking like the Bucs and the Saints are going to be battling it out for that division. So I expect the Saints to still stay in it even at 1-2. They're going to bounce back and hopefully get some wins in these next couple weeks. Packers just look good, though. Through the first 3 weeks, Aaron Rodgers has got a fire lit under his ass, and he's throwing touchdowns. They're putting up 30-plus a game. They're fun to watch. They're going to be scoring at a high clip, and they look like one of the best teams in the NFC right now, and led by Aaron Rodgers, who looks like he could be an MVP candidate as well. So Packers are a team to watch out for. They're going to be tough. NFC North is going to be tough, though, with the Bears and the Vikings and the Lions showing this week that they can play a little defense. So I think the Packers are probably the front runners in that division. I think that they're the best team in that division, but there's a lot of teams in that division that could beat up on them or steal some wins. Who knows? It's a tough division. Some top fantasy performers from this week. We'll start with the Saints. Coming in at number 3 is Emmanuel Sanders, who had 4 catches for 56 yards and a touchdown. At number 2 is Drew Brees, who had 288 yards and 3 touchdowns. And their top performer was Alvin Kamara, who had 6 carries for 58 yards, as well as 13 catches for 139 yards and 2 touchdowns. For the Packers, coming in at number 3 was Aaron Jones, who had 16 carries for 69 yards and a touchdown. He also had 2 catches for 17 yards. Coming in at number 2 was Aaron Rodgers, who had 283 yards, 3 touchdowns, as well as 2 rushes for 12 yards. And their top performer was Allen Lazard, who had 6 catches for 146 yards and a touchdown. Capping off our Week 3 slate is going to be the Monday Night Football game between the Chiefs and the Ravens. Chiefs got the win in this one, 34-20, to improve to 3-0, while the Ravens fall to 2-1. So my pick last week was the Ravens. I wasn't as impressed with the Chiefs, but I had taken the Chiefs plus 3.5 with the spread, so the Ravens is a loser there and the Chiefs is a winner. I ended up betting on the Chiefs, though, so even though I lost that pick, I ended up winning some money there. So in this one, the Chiefs got off to a hot start, taking a 27-10 lead into the half. But in the third quarter, the Ravens came back and scored a couple times to cut the lead to 7 to end the quarter. But on that next drive, Mahomes threw a touchdown to Eric Fisher, and that pretty much sealed the game for them. And it pretty much fucked over the overs bettors like myself, 54.5. Come on, I needed one more point. Stupid butt curve, missing those extra points and field goals, but whatever. The Chiefs' defense was the X factor in this one. They really gave Lamar and the Ravens' offense some fits. If they hadn't stepped up, I think it would be a completely different game. Lamar probably would have done much better, and it would have been a lot closer. But the Chiefs' defense really showed up and really showed that they're going to be there to help out Mahomes and the offense when they need it this season. Even though it wasn't as fun as I'd hoped, the Chiefs kind of were dominant from the beginning, and it never really felt like the Ravens could get it going or really had a chance in this game, even though the score was only a 14-point differential. But it was still a fun football game. It was still a great Monday Night Football performance. It's always fun to see Lamar and Patrick Mahomes go head-to-head, and those two teams are going to be tough. We'll see them hopefully match up again in the playoffs, maybe with the AFC Championship game. It'll be fun. Hopefully we get another match. Those two guys are great to watch. Top fantasy performers from Monday night. We'll start with the Ravens. They really only had one guy that did anything of significance, and that was Lamar Jackson. He had 97 yards passing and a touchdown, as well as 9 rushes for 83 yards and a fumble. For the Chiefs, coming in at number 3, they had Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who had 20 carries for 64 yards and 5 catches for 70 yards. At number 2 was Tyreek Hill, who had 5 catches for 77 yards and a touchdown, as well as 2 carries for 25 yards. And their top performer was Patrick Mahomes, who had 385 yards, 4 touchdowns, as well as 4 rushes for 26 yards and a touchdown. On this episode of TV Time, we're going to talk about the upcoming Marvel movies and TV shows. They've done a lot of shifting around lately with the pandemic, moving their movies in different spots throughout the next couple years. So I'm going to give you a breakdown of what's coming out when and kind of a brief overview of what these are going to be, and then some potential stuff that's going to happen past Phase 4. So we'll start with Phase 4. So coming out in late this year, it's supposed to come out this winter, is going to be the show on Disney Plus, WandaVision. This show looks like it'll take place in a pocket dimension of reality that Wanda is warping to her liking. But there's something going on beneath the surface. Wanda may be getting manipulated by somebody or something. And from the looks of the trailer, they're kind of going through time, or maybe even waking up to the fact that they're being manipulated as they're going through sitcoms through time. It starts with like I Love Lucy in black and white and kind of moves to like a Full House looking type setting. This show will connect to Doctor Strange 2 and the Multiverse of Madness, and this show could also be how the MCU brings mutants and X-Men into the MCU. If you're interested in kind of learning the backstory on that, there's a comic book called The House of M that gives the Wanda mutant story. That's about it for WandaVision. Look out for that later this year on Disney Plus. The next one on the slate is Black Widow. Black Widow has been delayed a lot. It was supposed to come out earlier this year, but will now be delayed a full year and will come out May 7th of 2021. This movie will take place in between Captain America Civil War and Avengers Infinity War. It will follow Natasha Romanoff as she goes back to Russia to connect with her spy family. This movie looks like it'll be really fun and really interesting. It's got David Harbour from Stranger Things. I love him as a character. He looks like he'll be playing some sort of Russian super soldier in this. He looks pretty funny in the trailers. Sucks that this movie keeps getting pushed back. Seems like it'll be pretty interesting. I'm pretty interested to see how it will tie to the rest of the MCU and the future of the movies, because it just kind of seems like a one-off. Like, Natasha's already dead and Endgame, so why did they give her her own movie now? So I guess we'll find out. Next up, after Black Widow, coming in July of 2021, will be Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. So Shang-Chi is the Kung Fu master of the MCU. This movie will most likely be a martial arts action movie that could potentially tie into the plot of Iron Man 3. So if you don't remember, in Iron Man 3, the villain was the Mandarin, but it turned out that it was the fake Mandarin. So this time it's supposed to be the real Mandarin, and I guess the Mandarin is trying to collect the 10 rings of power. So I don't know a lot about Shang-Chi or the Rings of Power, but those rings could be something to look out for as a larger MCU story for the future of the movies. After Shang-Chi, coming on November 5th, 2021, we've got the Eternals. Honestly, don't know a lot about the Eternals. I know it's a lot of space mumbo-jumbo cosmic stuff that Jack Kirby pulled out of his crazy brain. But the Eternals are supposed to be superhuman, like, space beings, I guess. They're very old, so this movie and their origin could explain a lot of things that have happened in the MCU leading up to now, and could explain a lot of the cosmic concepts and things that will take place in the space part of the MCU throughout Phase 4 and into Phase 5. It's got a great cast, lots of big names, should be a really good movie. I'm excited for that one. Also coming in 2021 is going to be Falcon and the Winter Soldier TV show on Disney Plus. This show will take place after Endgame, where they're trying to figure out how to replace Cap, whether it's going to be with Falcon or whether they're going to bring in somebody new. The villain in this show is supposed to be Zemo, just like he was in the Captain America Civil War movie. So this show could introduce some new characters. The U.S. agent, who's kind of like a super soldier spin-off of Cap, could become a new character that they bring up in the show. And there's rumors that they could be going to different islands in the MCU universe that have connections to Wolverine and the X-Men and stuff like that. So that'll be something to look out for in that show coming next year. Also in 2021 will be the Loki TV series. This show looks like it'll take place in the alternate timeline where Loki escaped with the Tesseract in Endgame. You know, when they were trying to steal the Tesseract from them in the middle of the lobby, and then Loki disappeared. It looks like that's where this show is going to pick up from, and he's going to be time hopping and doing some stuff and get picked up by the Time Bureau or the Time Cops or something. So look for Loki to be kind of a time jumpy show, and I don't know. We'll see. I don't really know a ton about that yet, but coming next year. In December of next year is supposed to be the Spider-Man 3 movie. This movie will most likely be Peter trying to clear his name after Mysterio revealed to the world that he was Peter Parker at the end of Far From Home. I don't know much about this movie. They haven't released a lot of teasers and spoilers and stuff like that. But I'm very excited. I've loved both of the Spider-Man movies that have come out already, and I'm looking forward to the third one. Next up in 2021 will be the What If TV show. This one will be pretty interesting. It's going to be an animated show that will be episodes of like alternate storylines of the different characters. So for example, one of the episodes is going to be if Peggy Carter took the super soldier serum instead of Steve Rogers. So it'll kind of be stories like that. Just some one-off little easy to watch but fun and exciting little, I think they're going to be 30 minutes or an hour, and all the characters are going to be voiced by the people that played them in the MCU. So all those people will be reprising their roles in an animated setting. Next up in 2021 also will be the Hawkeye TV show. This show should help set them up for the Young Avengers. Hawkeye will be training his daughter to become the next Hawkeye, who then goes on to join the Young Avengers. So as this Phase 4 is kind of working through, look out for some ties for some teen characters and people that are younger that can tie into the Young Avengers as like a new team that is more built with younger people and younger members. Okay, moving on to 2022. In February, supposedly is supposed to be Thor: Love and Thunder. This one is supposed to be super exciting. Natalie Portman will be returning to her role as Jane Foster and will supposedly become a female Thor. She had the hammer at Comic-Con, so we'll kind of see how that story plays out. The director Taika Waititi has said that this movie will be more wild than Thor Ragnarok, and I thought Ragnarok was a pretty crazy movie where they were in space and he had to fight Hulk and all that stuff. It was a pretty wild movie, but supposedly this one's supposed to be even crazier. So I'm excited for that. I think Thor is probably one of my favorite characters in the MCU. He's funny. Taika Waititi does a great job. I'm super pumped for this movie. And the last movie in Phase 4, coming in March of 2022, will be Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. This will pick up right after WandaVision and will explore the different MCU multiverses. There's not a ton of info on what's going to happen exactly in this movie yet, but there are a lot of rumors. So some of the rumors are that potentially there could be a Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man cameos in here, like alternate reality Spider-Man, as well as Tom Cruise is rumored to take a part as an alternate timeline or alternate reality Tony Stark Iron Man. So that'd be pretty cool if they can get some big names to cameo in some of these alternate reality roles. It'll be pretty interesting to see how they do this and how they use the multiverse to set up whatever is next in the MCU. So past Phase 4, I'll kind of quickly go over what's going to come in Phase 5. These ones don't exactly have dates yet, but these are kind of like rumored dates. So in 2022, we're going to get the She-Hulk TV show. They just cast the lead in that. Can't remember who it was, but that show should be pretty interesting. Coming in May of 2022, it's going to be Black Panther 2. R.I.P. Chadwick. I'm interested to see what they're going to do with that movie and how they're going to move on with the second movie without the main character. In July of 2022 is rumored to be Captain Marvel 2. In late 2022 is supposed to be Guardians 3. And then I'm not exactly sure, but in 2022 and 2023, we're supposed to be getting Ant-Man 3 and Blade. And then potentially to finish off Phase 5, there's rumors about the Fantastic Four, Miss Marvel, and Moon Knight. So that's kind of what's happening in the MCU right now. There's a lot happening. We're going to be getting a lot of TV and movies over the next 2 years, and it should be really exciting. They should be coming at us rapid fire, and I'm really pumped to see what the next phase of the MCU has to offer. Hope you guys enjoyed the show today. Sorry for the delay due to Yom Kippur. We will be back with another episode on Thursday, and we'll be dropping episodes on Tuesdays and Thursdays for the time being. Enjoy today, guys. Peace.